When I look back over the past 30 years of our journey, it's hard to believe how far we've come. I mean, not in my wildest imaginations could I have dreamt that this is where we would be today. Like the children of Israel, we were stepping out into the unknown. And all I had was a promise that God was going to be with us. And that was good enough for me. And we were like nomads as we were coming out. We moved from place to place with each location bringing its own set of challenges, but also breakthroughs and growth. And of course, we didn't start with having a building. We started with a call, with a vision, a whole lot of faith, and yes, God's faithfulness every step of the way. So let me take you on a Cornerstone Trail, a walk to remember. It was in 1990 when a small group of about 80 of us took a leap of faith to start a new church plant under the covering of the Chapel of the Resurrection. It was called Bedok Christian Center because of our location. We had lots of young people in the church, and young people have zeal, but they don't have money. And it all began on a bus ride on my way to work. I still remember very vividly that the bus passed the old National Library, where the Lord spoke to me very clearly and gave me a crystal clear vision of a new church plant. Around 120 people were gathered for inaugural service on the 2nd of February 1990 at Duke Hotel, located along Mayor Road. And what a thrill it was for us. It was a new beginning for the church. And before we officially commenced our service at the Duke Hotel, we started out with a small office space that was strategically located above Kentucky Fried Chicken in Bedok Central. It was here in this tiny facility that God began to sow into us the seeds for what was to become Cornerstone Community Church. We learned from those early days not to despise the day of small beginnings. We were there for several months before we shifted into this old dingy 3-story shop house along Changi Road. For 2 years, we met in this tiny little hall and we packed the place, man. Many young people joined us during this duration that we were here in this facility. And it was here that we learned how to pray, how to trust God for our provision and guidance. In 1992, we moved our services to an old movie theater previously known as the Palace Theater that was then being used as a live entertainment center called Sin Kim Kok. We were there for almost a year in that cockroach-infested facility. The toilets were almost unbearable because of the stench. We had threats, lots of spiritual warfare, but we endured, and I think the Lord had compassion on us and later moved us on to a very beautiful facility. During that time, our offices were located on the 5th story of a worn-out building called Laos Arcadium. And just when we thought cockroaches were the only pests we had to deal with, the real test came when we encountered termites, leaky roofs, and a lift that wasn't working, and a very difficult landlord. Our next move positioned us further down East Coast Road stretch to a stately house at 764 Mountbatten Road. Boy, it was a massive breath of fresh air. Our worship services were relocated to an auditorium on the 11th story of the World Trade Center, and was here that the church started seeing positive growth to about 600 members. If you were to ask me what was the turning point of the church it was here in 1995. And that's when the Lord spoke to us very clearly that we were to take the church out of the Anglican denomination, whose covering we were still under at that point. That decision to leave sealed our destiny because we were willing to do what was inconvenient, painful, but necessary. We obeyed and we were sent out by the blessing of my pastor, Canon James Wong. It was also then that we officially had a change of name to Cornerstone Community Church. In July that year, in a service whilst preaching, God spoke so clearly to me that He was going to give us a building of our own, and we saw this come to pass in 1997. In October that same year, there was an open heaven over us that lasted for about 5 months. It was like heaven on earth. And also in 1995, we established our first church overseas. Purchasing the auditorium at Odeon Katong for our growing congregation was a huge step towards fulfilling our destiny as a church. I remember how it took my breath away when I first stepped into the dark and musky hall, which was previously occupied by a well-known discotheque called Music World. While they were serving up a different kind of spirit and entertainment, God had in His mind to pour out His Spirit in that place and gloriously transform the entire neighborhood to what it is today. And what a blessing Odeon Katong facility has been to our community. It's truly become a dwelling place of the Lord and His people. On the 20th of January 2019, we expanded our reach into the city by starting services at the Jordan Hall in Bugis Plus called Cornerstone Bugis. In April of 2023, we had to relocate our services to GV Cinema within the same location, and the congregation in Bugis started slowly growing and being established. A location in the heart of the city, something we've always felt to be part of our DNA. But while this was a strategic and convenient location for our Bugis congregation, we were still on the lookout for a more permanent place to call our home. In early 2024, I was asked if I wanted to view an infamous nightclub in Orchard Towers. And I recall as I walked in, I just had this knowing that God was going to give it to us. After some negotiations, we took a bungee step of faith and bought over 2 nightclubs in Orchard Towers, formerly known as the Crazy Horse and Top 5. This is set to become our permanent service location in the heart of the city for our Bugis congregation and to be renamed Cornerstone Orchard. This is an exciting season for our church as we step into yet another chapter of our Cornerstone story. God has called us with an onward progressive vision towards Zion, and we must not settle for anything less. Our vision, which began with a call 30 years ago, has now grown and become a fruitful tree, and may God continue to extend His grace and favor to us. This is the Cornerstone Trail, and the journey is still unfolding.